Amara strolled down the lively streets of Accra, the morning sun warming her face and the smell of freshly roasted coffee filling the air. She held a cup in her hand, its warmth seeping into her palms, and smiled at the familiar sights around her. Market vendors called out cheerfully, displaying colorful fabrics, ripe mangoes, and handmade trinkets, their laughter blending with the hum of the city. Children darted between stalls, their shouts echoing through the streets, and motorbikes wove through the crowd, adding a rhythmic pulse to the city's energy. Life felt simple, almost perfect in that moment, as if the world was offering her a quiet happiness. Yet, even amid the joy, Amara's mind wandered to Kofi. She remembered the first time they met, how his easy smile had made her heart skip a beat, the late-night calls that stretched into laughter and secrets, the little dates that somehow became the highlights of her weeks. Every memory felt warm and familiar, yet a shadow of doubt tugged at the edges of her thoughts. She thought about her sister Nia, who had always been a little too observant, a little too competitive. There were fleeting moments of jealousy, subtle glances, and questions that now seemed pointed, though back then she had shrugged them off as typical sibling rivalry. As Amara sipped her coffee and navigated the bustling streets, an uneasy feeling lingered beneath her calm. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, but deep down, a whisper of tension hinted that life might not be as simple as it looked. That peaceful morning in Accra held the quiet before a storm, setting the stage for a betrayal that would turn her world upside down. Amara couldn't shake the small, nagging moments that had started to stick in her mind. It began with Kofi's phone lighting up at odd times, his quick glances and hurried smiles whenever a message came through. She had asked him once who was texting, and he had laughed it off, saying it was just work or a friend. At the time, she had believed him, brushing the thought aside. But looking back now, every detail seemed to carry a hidden weight. Then there was Nia. Her sister had always been a little competitive, but recently she seemed to take an unusual interest in Kofi's life. She laughed at his jokes a little too easily, asked questions about his hobbies that went beyond polite curiosity, and lingered in rooms longer than necessary when he was around. Amara had told herself she was overthinking, that sibling jealousy was normal, that she was imagining connections where none existed. But each smile, each shared glance between Kofi and Nia, started to feel like small puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit where they were supposed to. Family dinners became arenas of subtle tension. Nia would casually ask Kofi about Amara's work schedule or her weekend plans, her tone just light enough to seem harmless, but sharp enough to make Amara's stomach twist. During casual gatherings with friends, she noticed Nia moving closer to Kofi, brushing against his arm or leaning in when she spoke, all while Amara felt invisible in her own relationship. At first, she laughed these moments off, convincing herself she was being paranoid. Then came the flashes of memory she couldn't ignore, a shared joke that seemed private, a lingering touch on the shoulder, a quiet exchange of messages Amara wasn't supposed to see. Each memory replayed like a warning she had chosen to ignore. The unease settled deeper, gnawing at her confidence and making her question if she had misread everything. By now, what once seemed trivial, the odd text, the lingering glance, the curious question, began to feel like a pattern. Amara realized she could no longer dismiss these signs as coincident. They hinted at something more, a hidden truth she wasn't yet ready to confront. The unease in her chest grew, a quiet but persistent whisper that the life she thought she knew was quietly unraveling around her. Each subtle betrayal, unnoticed before, now loomed large, and she could feel that her world was shifting, inch by inch, toward a revelation she wasn't prepared for. Amara had always trusted Kofi completely. She remembered the long nights when they talked about their future, the promises he whispered, the way he would hold her hand and reassure her that she was the only one. And she had trusted Nia too, her sister who had been by her side through every high and low. But that trust came crashing down the moment she stumbled across the evidence. It started with a message notification she hadn't expected to see, a thread of texts between Kofi and Nia that made her stomach twist. At first, she tried to rationalize it, telling herself there had to be an innocent explanation. But then came the photos, candid pictures of the two of them together, laughing in ways that Amara had once thought were only meant for her. The undeniable truth hit her like a punch to the chest. They had been seeing each other in secret, hiding every stolen moment from her. Her mind raced as she replayed memories she had once treasured. Every private conversation with Kofi, every promise of loyalty, suddenly felt like a lie. Nia's friendly smiles, her seemingly harmless questions, now revealed a manipulative charm designed to mask her intentions. The realization that two people she loved most had betrayed her in the same moment was overwhelming. It wasn't just hurt, it was disbelief, anger, and heartbreak all tangled together. Amara's heart ached as she thought about the years she had invested, the trust she had given freely, and the sacrifices she had made. Every little lie she had ignored before now felt like a knife twisting in her chest. She felt exposed, as if the ground beneath her had been ripped away. The betrayal was raw, intimate, and personal, cutting deeper than she could have imagined. And yet, amid the shock and pain, a part of Amara began to awaken. This was not just heartbreak. It was a call to reclaim herself, to face the truth, and to decide how she would respond. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but the first step was seeing things clearly, no longer blinded by love or family loyalty. For the first time, she understood the depth of deceit around her, and with that understanding came a spark of determination. The truth had shattered her world, but it had also lit a fire. Amara's journey was about to take a turn she could never have predicted. The betrayal was complete, undeniable, and devastating, but it also set the stage for a reckoning that would leave everyone watching, gasping at the sheer audacity of what had been hidden right under her. Amara sat in her apartment, staring at the wall as if it could answer the questions swirling in her mind. The shock of discovering Kofi and Nia's betrayal had left her numb at first, but now a storm of emotions raged inside her. Heartbreak hit her in waves, each one sharper than the last, pulling memories from the past into painful focus. She thought about the nights she had stayed up waiting for Kofi's calls, the times she had rearranged her life to support his dreams, the quiet sacrifices she had made without complaint. Every compromise, every bit of emotional labor, now felt like a gift given to the wrong people. Anger simmered beneath the surface, hot and raw. She remembered lending Kofi money when he had unexpected expenses, giving up opportunities in her own career to be there for him, and offering a shoulder to lean on when he needed it most. And now, all of that care, all of that trust, had been returned with deception. The betrayal wasn't just shocking, it was personal, intimate, and unbearable because it had come from the two people she had loved and trusted most. Alongside heartbreak and anger, disbelief gnawed at her. How had she missed the signs? How had she trusted so blindly while Nia and Kofi plotted behind her back? Memories of family dinners, casual visits, and small moments of subtle suspicion replayed in her mind, each one now tinged with a bitter clarity. She questioned herself endlessly, wondering if she had been naive, if she had failed to protect herself. And then came the quiet, heavy loneliness. Amara realized how much of her life had revolved around the people who had hurt her. For years, she had put their happiness above her own, believing that love meant sacrifice. Now she felt unmoored, like a ship adrift without an anchor, uncertain if she could ever trust someone again. The thought was terrifying, but in the fear there was also a spark, a small, fragile understanding that she needed to reclaim herself. Every heartbeat of pain, every memory of devotion turned into heartbreak, was teaching her something about her own strength. She allowed herself to feel the hurt fully, not hiding behind excuses or distractions. It was raw, exhausting, and humbling. And yet, deep down, a quiet voice whispered that she could rise from this, stronger and wiser. The betrayal had torn her world apart, but it also laid the groundwork for something else. A version of Amara who would no longer let anyone diminish her worth, who would eventually turn heartbreak into power. The emotional fallout was complete, leaving scars but also clarity. Amara's path forward was uncertain, painful, and heavy, but it was also hers to define. For the first time, she began to understand that the pain, as unbearable as it was, could one day become the foundation for reclaiming her life. Amara refused to let herself be a victim. The heartbreak and anger were still raw, but she knew that acting impulsively would only give power to those who had hurt her. She needed a plan, a way to reclaim her dignity and make the betrayal impossible to ignore. The first step was gathering everything she could as evidence. She carefully saved messages, printed photos, and documented every interaction she could remember between Kofi and Nia. Each piece she collected made the truth sharper, undeniable, and more powerful. She reached out to Zola, her best friend in Lagos, someone she trusted completely. Together, they went through the evidence, piecing it into a story that was clear, convincing, and impossible to deny. Zola offered practical advice, helping Amara think through the timing, the audience, and the impact of each move she planned to make. Amara also spoke to her cousin Kwesi, who had a keen sense of strategy and a level head that could counterbalance her emotional intensity. They talked through every possible reaction, every angle, and how to stay calm while delivering the truth. As the plan took shape, Amara visualized the moment she would confront Nia and Kofi. She imagined the wedding hall, the guests, and the expressions on their faces when the truth came out. She wanted it to be controlled, powerful, and unforgettable. Not a scene of uncontrolled anger, but a demonstration of courage and clarity. Every detail mattered, where she would stand, what she would say, and how she would reveal the evidence. Timing was critical. She knew the moment had to have impact, one that would leave no room for denial or distraction. The process of planning gave her a strange sense of calm. Each step, each conversation, and each careful decision made her feel stronger. She wasn't just plotting revenge, she was reclaiming her voice, asserting her worth, and proving that betrayal could not define her. In her mind, she played out multiple scenarios, preparing for surprises or attempts to deflect the truth. She reminded herself that patience would make the revelation even more powerful, that letting emotions drive her could weaken the impact. Amara also worked on herself. She practiced speaking calmly, standing tall, and letting her presence command attention. She knew that confidence would be as important as the evidence she held. Every night, she replayed the plan in her mind, tightening it, anticipating challenges, and strengthening her resolve. By the time the wedding approached, she wasn't just ready, she felt unstoppable. The betrayal had shaken her, but it had also given her clarity, focus, and a sense of justice that could not be denied. This was more than a confrontation, it was a statement. Amara's careful planning, patience, and determination ensured that when the time came, the revelation would be unforgettable. She wasn't acting out of anger alone. She was asserting her truth, reclaiming her dignity, and preparing to leave a mark that no one involved would ever forget. The stage was set, and Amara was ready to step into it with courage and precision. Amara knew she couldn't face what was coming alone. The betrayal had left her raw, angry, and determined, but she also understood that even the strongest resolve could falter without support. That's why she reached out to Zola, her best friend who had been by her side through every high and low. Zola didn't hesitate. She listened to Amara's story, absorbed every detail, and immediately began helping her think through the next steps. Calm and practical, Zola became Amara's anchor, offering advice on timing, tone, and how to stay composed while revealing the truth. Her cousin Kwesi joined them too. Known in the family for his strategic thinking and level-headed approach, he helped Amara map out the possibilities. Together, they researched every detail of Nia's upcoming wedding, where the ceremony would take place, how the seating was arranged, when speeches were scheduled, and what moments might offer the most impact. Kwesi had an eye for detail that Amara lacked in the heat of emotion, pointing out opportunities she might have missed, and helping her plan contingencies in case things didn't go exactly as she imagined. The three of them spent hours together, going over every angle. They practiced what Amara would say, how she would hold the evidence, and how she would remain calm and commanding when all eyes were on. Zola reminded her to focus on clarity, not anger, and Kwesi emphasized timing and logistics, ensuring there would be no chance for confusion or dismissal. They even discussed subtle gestures and body language that could reinforce her message, turning the revelation into something unforgettable. What surprised Amara most wasn't just the practical help, it was the emotional support. During planning sessions, they laughed to release tension, shared stories of betrayal and resilience, and reminded Amara of her worth. Every word of encouragement strengthened her, transforming her heartbreak into purpose. She realized that having allies made her feel invincible in a way she hadn't anticipated. The weight of the betrayal was still there, but it was no longer crushing. It had been shared with people who understood her pain and were ready to help her rise. By the time the wedding approached, Amara felt ready in a way she never could have on her own. The careful planning, combined with emotional support and strategic thinking, gave her the confidence to face Kofi, Nia, and the entire wedding audience. Zola and Kwesi were not just side characters. They were crucial partners in turning heartbreak into power, betrayal into revelation. Through their guidance, Amara learned that even the most personal battles can be fought smarter and stronger when you have the right people by your side. With her support network in place, Amara no longer felt isolated. Every detail had been considered, every potential obstacle addressed, and every moment of doubt met with reassurance. The stage was set, and she was ready to step onto it, not just as a woman betrayed, but as someone whose clarity, strength, and carefully orchestrated plan would make an unforgettable moment. The day of Nia's wedding arrived, and Kampala was alive with excitement. The streets leading to the venue were lined with vibrant flowers, their colors so bright they seemed to glow under the morning sun. The air was filled with the rhythmic beat of traditional drums, blending with the chatter and laughter of guests arriving from near and far. Amara arrived early, taking in every detail with a careful eye. The venue was a picture of perfection. Sparkling white tents, intricate floral arrangements, and tables draped in gold and ivory linen. Everything screamed celebration, but for Amara, it also felt like the stage for what was about to unfold. Inside, guests mingled, sipping on drinks and exchanging compliments. Nia moved through the crowd like a queen, radiant in her wedding gown, unaware of the storm quietly building just a few steps away. Her smile was flawless, her excitement genuine, and she had no idea that the truth Amara held would soon shatter the image of perfection she had carefully cultivated. Friends and family laughed, posed for photos, and chatted about the beauty of the day. completely oblivious to the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Amara's eyes scanned the room, noting every detail she and her allies had considered during their planning. She knew the layout of the seating, the timing of the speeches, and the exact moment when she could make the biggest impact. Each flower arrangement, each carefully chosen candle, and every seat at the head table became part of the story she would tell, not just about betrayal, but about courage, dignity, and truth. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. From the bridesmaids' matching dresses to the groomsmen's crisp suits, from the scent of fresh flowers to the soft glow of fairy lights, every element was perfectly orchestrated. Amara felt a quiet thrill of control. While everyone else saw only beauty and celebration, she saw the moment when everything would shift. She could almost feel the gasps, the whispers, and the stunned faces that would follow. As the ceremony drew closer, the tension in Amara's chest built. She sipped her water, steadying herself, listening to the laughter and music, while rehearsing in her mind how she would step forward, command attention, and reveal the truth. Every heartbeat reminded her of the power she held, the evidence, the planning, and the support of Zola and Kwesi. By the time the wedding was in full swing, Amara was ready. The flowers, the music, the carefully arranged seats, and the crowd of unsuspecting guests. All of it was part of the stage she had meticulously prepared. Nia's radiant smile and the celebratory energy in the air were the perfect contrast to the revelation waiting just around the corner. The anticipation was palpable, and every eye, unknowingly, would soon be drawn to the moment that would change everything. When the time came for toasts, Amara felt her heart race, not with fear, but with a sharp, steady focus. She stood, glass in hand, the soft clinking of cups fading as all eyes turned toward her. For a moment, the music and chatter disappeared, leaving her in a quiet bubble of anticipation. She could see Nia beaming, blissfully unaware, and Kofi sitting confidently, assuming the day was still just a celebration. Amara took a deep breath, letting the calm she had practiced for weeks settle over her. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice steady, carrying through the hall. "Weddings are supposed to be about love, trust, and commitment. But sometimes the truth needs to be spoken, no matter how hard it is." She paused, letting her words sink in, watching the curious glances ripple through the guests. Then, with deliberate calm, she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone and printed photos. One by one, she displayed messages, pictures, and texts that left no room for denial. The crowd gasped, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Eyes widened, hands went to mouths, and conversations halted mid-lap. Nia froze, her radiant smile slipping into a stunned silence, while Kofi's face paled as he tried to form an explanation. But Amara didn't shout or accuse angrily. She spoke with controlled authority, recounting the moments of trust she had given, the promises that had been broken, and the deliberate betrayals she had uncovered. Every detail was clear, undeniable, and impossible to dismiss. She watched as the shock spread. Friends and family whispered to each other, some looking from Nia to Kofi with disbelief, others nodding slowly, understanding the gravity of the betrayal. Amara's presence was commanding, her calm strength contrasted with the chaos she had revealed. Every eye in the room was on her, not just because of the scandal, but because she had taken control of the moment with dignity and courage. For the first time that day, Amara felt a rush of release. The weight of betrayal, the months of planning, and the heartbreak all transformed into clarity and power. Nia could not ignore the truth, and Kofi could not twist it. The crowd, stunned and silent, absorbed the revelation like a wave crashing over them, and whispers of admiration for Amara began to circulate even as the shock lingered. When she finally lowered her glass, the room was quiet except for scattered murmurs. Amara's calm, authoritative delivery had ensured that she wasn't just exposing betrayal. She was reclaiming her voice, her dignity, and her power. In that moment, she had turned the wedding upside down, and everyone present would remember it. The truth had been spoken, the betrayal revealed, and Amara had emerged unshaken, commanding respect and leaving a mark that no one could ignore. The moment Amara revealed the truth, the room erupted, not in celebration, but in stunned silence and murmurs. Guests froze in place, unsure how to react, their eyes darting between Nia, Kofi, and the calm figure standing before. Whispers spread quickly, growing louder as the reality of the betrayal sank in. People who had been laughing moments ago now exchanged wide-eyed glances, some covering their mouths, others shaking their heads in disbelief. The energy in the hall shifted completely, from joy and excitement to tension and shock. Nia couldn't find her voice. She stood frozen, her radiant smile replaced by a blank, uncomprehending stare. Every carefully crafted gesture of happiness had crumbled in an instant. Kofi, meanwhile, tried to speak, to explain, to defend himself, but the words came out weak and stumbling. His usual confidence had evaporated, leaving only embarrassment and guilt. Friends and family who had once praised the couple were now grappling with confusion, anger, and disappointment. Amara, however, remained composed. Her calm authority contrasted sharply with the chaos around her. Guests who had been on the edge of disbelief began to admire her courage. They saw not just the exposure of a betrayal, but the strength it took to stand there, controlled and dignified, and speak the truth without letting anger take over. Every whispered conversation seemed to circle around her bravery and clarity. People who had once underestimated her now looked at her with a new respect, realizing that she had taken charge of a situation most would have crumbled on. Alliances began to shift almost immediately. Some family members quietly distanced themselves from Nia, while others silently offered Amara gestures of support. Close friends, previously hesitant to get involved, now subtly aligned with her, understanding that she had acted not out of revenge, but with precision and self-respect. The social fallout was as powerful as the emotional one, as relationships and loyalties quietly realigned in the wake of her revelation. Even among strangers, Amara's strength was evident. Guests who didn't know her personally were talking about her bravery, sharing the story in hushed tones that carried admiration. The whispers were contagious, spreading like wildfire as people processed what had happened. Every eye in the room had seen her stand firm, confront betrayal, and maintain her dignity in front of a crowd that included both loved ones and strangers. By the end of the evening, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. The wedding, once a celebration of love and happiness, had become a stage for truth, courage, and justice. Amara emerged not as a victim, but as a figure of strength and dignity. Even as Nia and Kofi tried to navigate the aftermath, it was clear who held the respect of the room. Amara's composure and bravery left a lasting impression, inspiring everyone present and ensuring that the story of betrayal would forever be intertwined with her courage, leaving her not just vindicated, but admired and empowered. After the wedding, Amara finally allowed herself to breathe. The storm of betrayal, heartbreak, and confrontation had passed, leaving a quiet space she hadn't felt in months. She reflected on everything she had endured, the trust she had given, the lies she had uncovered, and the courage it had taken to stand up and speak her truth. The pain had been sharp, but it had also taught her something invaluable. Her worth could never be defined by the choices of others. She learned the importance of boundaries, the power of self-respect, and the strength that comes from facing difficult truths head-on. Amara began to focus on herself in ways she hadn't before. She invested time in her passions, nurtured friendships that lifted her, and rebuilt her life around honesty and trust. Every small step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of herself that had been overshadowed by betrayal. She understood that moving on didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing peace, growth, and freedom over resentment and pain. Nia's silence lingered in her mind as a quiet reminder that actions have consequences, and that some people are revealed not by what they say, but by what they choose to hide. Most importantly, Amara realized that her story had power beyond her own. Sharing her experience in the way she chose, with dignity, honesty, and courage, offered a lesson to anyone who had ever been hurt by those they trusted. She had turned heartbreak into strength, betrayal into clarity, and pain into action. As she looked toward the future, Amara felt lighter, more confident, and ready to embrace life on her own terms. Her journey was no longer about revenge. It was about reclaiming herself, inspiring others, and living a life free from betrayal, a life filled with possibility, resilience, and hope.